If you love intense emotional stories about marriage, sacrifice, and invisible pain, tap like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, because what you're about to read isn't about a poisoned glass of wine. It's about what happens when a woman disappears so completely inside her own life that even death starts to feel like rest. The wine reflected the chandelier wrong. Not red the way it should have been. Something faintly green moved beneath the surface. Hana Lee noticed. Her husband didn't. June Lee sat across the table, scrolling through shipment figures on his phone, one elbow resting casually beside the crystal glass meant for him. He was used to danger. Built his life on it. Men like him didn't look closely at wine. They assumed the world would move out of their way. Hana watched his fingers drift toward the stem. 3 seconds. That was all she had. 3 seconds to decide whether to save him, or finally stop trying. She reached across the table and lifted the glass. "I want to try it," she said softly. June didn't look up. Didn't notice. Didn't hear her. Hana drank. The taste was wrong immediately. Metallic, chemical, burning as it slid down her throat. Her chest tightened. Her heart stumbled like it forgot what it was meant to do. She swallowed anyway, because stopping wouldn't change anything now. Across the table, June continued talking about container schedules, profit margins, Tuesday deadlines. He didn't see his wife dying 18 inches away. Hana collapsed quietly. No scream. No drama. Just a hand pressed to her chest, a napkin slipping from her fingers, blooming dark purple as the wine spilled across white linen. That was when June's mother stood. Mrs. Lee didn't raise her voice. Didn't panic. She had survived decades in rooms where panic got people killed. "Call the doctor," she said, eyes locked on June's younger brother. "Tell him it's aconite." The brother went pale. June finally turned. "Hana." She didn't answer. For the first time in years, fear cut through him cleanly. They lowered her to the floor. June's hands shook as he checked her pulse, weak, uneven. He held her like something breakable, something he hadn't realized could be lost. She lived. Barely. The doctor arrived in time. Said the amount she drank would have killed June in minutes. Said she was lucky. Said she was brave. Everyone called her a hero. No one asked why she didn't warn him. 1 week later, Hana woke in a private medical suite surrounded by white walls, orchids she didn't remember liking, and a diamond bracelet too heavy to mean anything. June sat beside her bed, rehearsed regret in his eyes. "I should have listened to you," he said. "About the finances. About my brother." She nodded politely. He thought that was the apology she needed. The twins arrived that afternoon, 4 years old, careful with her like she might break. Their small hands on her face undid something inside her. She cried without knowing why. That night, after they were gone, she finally spoke. "When was the last time you asked how I was?" June couldn't answer. She looked at him, exhausted rather than angry. "I drank the poison because I saw it," she said. "But I stayed silent because part of me didn't care if I lived." He froze. "I was tired of being invisible," she continued. "And dying for you felt like the only way I'd ever matter." He didn't understand yet. Not fully. But something had cracked. And cracks, once opened, don't close quietly. Hana came home physically healed and emotionally hollow. Doctors said the poison had left no lasting damage. Her heart was steady again. Her organs were fine. From the outside, she looked like a woman who had survived a terrible incident and was slowly returning to normal life. From the inside, she felt like someone who had already died and was now expected to keep moving out of habit. She moved through the house on autopilot. Breakfast for the twins. Lunch packed. Shoes tied. Schedules synced. Messages answered with polite gratitude. "Thank you for the flowers. I'm feeling much better." Yes, it was very frightening. "We're grateful it wasn't worse." All lies. Not dramatic ones. Just empty ones. June noticed she was quieter, but he interpreted it the way he interpreted everything. Fatigue, recovery, time needed. He compensated the way he always did. Gifts. Apologies. Adjustments that looked impressive from a distance and meant nothing up close. He started coming home earlier. Not early, just earlier. He asked if she needed anything. She said no. He assumed that meant she was fine. His mother didn't assume. Mrs. Lee watched Hana the way she'd watched enemies and allies for 50 years, with attention. She noticed how Hana folded laundry like a task, not a home. How she smiled at the twins but didn't linger. How she never complained, never asked, never reached. That kind of quiet scared her. 3 weeks after the poisoning, Mrs. Lee arranged for the twins to be out of the house and June to be occupied elsewhere. When Hana finished folding the last shirt, she looked up to find her mother-in-law sitting across from her, tea already poured. "We're going to talk," Mrs. Lee said. Hana didn't argue. "Everyone says you're brave," Mrs. Lee continued. "You accept that word like it belongs to you. It doesn't." Hana's fingers tightened around the teacup. "You didn't drink that wine because you're brave," Mrs. Lee said calmly. "You drank it because you were desperate." Silence stretched. The house felt too large without the twins' noise. "I need to know what kind of desperate you were." The practiced answer rose automatically to Hana's lips. "I wanted to protect my family. I did what any wife would do." Mrs. Lee didn't blink. "No," she said. "That's the lie you tell when the truth is dangerous." Something inside Hana cracked. Not loudly. Just enough to let the truth leak through. "I was tired," she whispered. "I was so tired I didn't care if I lived." Mrs. Lee waited. "I saw the poison," Hana continued. "And yes, I thought about the twins. I thought about June. But I also thought, at least this would be over. At least I wouldn't have to keep disappearing every day." Her voice shook. "I thought if I died saving him, I'd finally matter." The words fell heavy between them. Mrs. Lee didn't comfort her. Didn't interrupt. She understood that some confessions didn't need reassurance. They needed to be heard. "You were erased," she said finally. "Slowly. Quietly. And no one noticed because you made it easy." Hana broke then. Real crying. Ugly, shaking, years held back by obligation and silence pouring out all at once. When it passed, Mrs. Lee spoke again. "My son thinks he failed to listen to you about money and strategy. He thinks that was the betrayal." Hana gave a hollow laugh. "He has no idea," Mrs. Lee said. "And he needs to." "I don't want him to treat me like I'm fragile," Hana said. "Or broken. I don't want to become his guilt project." "Would that be worse," Mrs. Lee asked, "than remaining invisible?" Hana had no answer. That night, June was told only one thing. "Listen," his mother said. "Don't defend yourself. Don't fix. Just listen." He found Hana in the twins' room after midnight, sitting in the rocking chair, watching their daughter sleep like she was memorizing her face. He sat on the floor beside her. Didn't speak. When she finally did, her voice was steady, practiced, dangerous. "Everyone keeps saying I saved you," she said. "That's not the whole truth." June stayed silent. "I didn't just risk my life," she said, finally turning to him. "I was ready to leave it." His breath caught. "I was so empty that poison felt like mercy," she continued. "That's what your neglect did to me." The words landed harder than any threat he'd ever faced. "I didn't just fail to see you," he said quietly. "I made you want to disappear." She nodded. "Once. I don't know how to fix this," he admitted. "I don't know if you can," she replied. "But if you try, it can't look like before." The next morning, June stood in the kitchen staring at eggs like they were explosives. He burned breakfast. Made the twins cry. Poured juice into the wrong cup. Asked Hana for help and didn't get it. For the first time, he had to learn instead of command. It was clumsy. Humbling. Slow. He learned their routines. Their fears. Their strange rules that somehow mattered more than logic. He learned Hana had been carrying all of it alone. Week by week, presence replaced performance. Meanwhile, the man who poisoned the wine waited for judgment. June's brother sat in a guarded house, consumed by guilt and fear. When Mrs. Lee finally came, she didn't threaten him. She asked why. He told her everything. The threats. The photos of his family. The impossible choice. I used her invisibility, he confessed. I assumed no one would listen to her. Mrs. Lee absorbed that truth like a verdict. Later, June arrived. The punishment was exile, not death. Because my wife asked for mercy, June said. And because this family has already bled enough. As his brother left the city, June understood something vital. Power had nearly destroyed what mattered. And only presence could save it. Hana didn't forgive him. But she watched. And for the first time in years, she felt something dangerous return. Hope. Change did not arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, awkwardly, like someone learning a language they should have spoken years ago. June began waking before dawn. Not because he needed to, but because the twins did. He learned the rhythm of their mornings, the warnings they needed before transitions, the exact tone that soothed nightmares, the strange logic of 4-year-olds that made perfect sense once you listened. Hana watched without stepping in. That was the hardest part. Every instinct told her to correct him, rescue him, smooth the chaos the way she always had. Instead, she let him struggle. Let him fail. Let him learn what it felt like to be responsible instead of powerful. Some days she believed him. Other days she waited for the old June to return. The one who disappeared when pressure rose, who replaced presence with money, who assumed love could survive neglect indefinitely. Fear lingered quietly between them. Then the pressure came. A rival faction made a move on the ports. Urgent meetings were called. Phones rang non-stop. This was the kind of crisis that used to swallow June whole. Hana watched him read the message, saw the familiar tension settle into his shoulders. In the old days, he would have vanished without a word. Instead, he closed the phone. "I'll go after dinner," he said. She looked at him carefully. "This is serious." "So are you," he replied. They ate together that night. The twins argued over syrup. Laughed. Asked questions June actually answered. 2 hours later he left, and came back before midnight. He kept choosing them. Not once. Repeatedly. That was what slowly dismantled Hana's defenses. Trust did not return as forgiveness. It returned as evidence. Weeks passed. Then months. They were not suddenly romantic. They were cautious. Honest. Sometimes tense. Some nights they slept back-to-back with polite distance. Other nights they talked until dawn about things they should have said years earlier. One night, Hana asked the question she'd been avoiding. "If you hadn't almost lost me," she said quietly, "would you have changed?" June didn't answer quickly. "No," he admitted. "And that's the part I'll live with." The truth didn't hurt as much as the lies would have. He never asked for forgiveness. Never demanded reassurance. He focused on being present and let the rest follow, or not. Mrs. Lee watched it all with careful approval she never voiced. "You chose to stay," she told Hana once. "That doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous. Because now you know your worth." 6 months after the poisoning, they returned to the same restaurant. Same table. Same chandelier. Different air. When the wine arrived, June looked at Hana before touching the glass. "Are you okay?" he asked. She smiled. Small. Real. "Yes," she said. "I am." He reached for her hand across the space that used to separate them. This time, it wasn't 18 inches. It was nothing. Hana did not forget the woman who drank poison because invisibility felt heavier than death. She honored her by never becoming her again. This is not a story about a perfect marriage. It's a story about a woman who refused to disappear, and a man who learned, too late but not too late enough, that love without presence is just noise. If this story stayed with you, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be seen. And tell me, would you have stayed, or would you have walked away?